I'm asking every Christian in the world to stop what you're doing for the next few minutes and let's pray together for President Trump. He just narrowly escaped an assassination attempt, 4 sniper shots, maybe more. One of them nicked his ear just 1 inch over and he would be dead. God has a plan that the enemy's trying to stop. It's our job to pray. I'm not doing this for clicks or views. I want to raise up prayer. Please tag people, share this. Let's all release a crescendo of prayer.
Hello and welcome to God Gave Rock and Roll to You, the podcast where we explore the Christian rock subculture of the late 20th century and beyond. I'm your host, Matt Beaton from Austin, Texas. Doug, Dickens, and Tony Hormillosa will join us in a little bit. We wanted to do this special episode. It's a little bit different than what we normally do. This isn't really going to be Christian rock focused or music focused. We've been trying not to bring politics into this conversation that much because we really don't want it to take over the conversation. This is just really more about Christian rock in general and Christian culture in general in America over the last, 40 or 50 years and how that's affected our society. But you can't really talk about that without talking about politics. And especially with the election coming up, these things are really coming to a head. So we wanted to just put out this little episode and talk about how we're seeing the intersection of faith and politics at this moment in time. So we open up with a conversation with just Tony and I discussing some things, and then Doug joins us a little bit later. I also wanted to have a little disclaimer. We get a little salty, so if you're offended by strong language, I apologize. But, sometimes interesting times call for some stronger language to describe what's going on. So, I apologize for some of the profanity in the episode. So if you want to get a hold of us or be a part of the conversation, our email is godgaverockmail@gmail.com. Our Instagram handle is godgaverock2u. That's godgaverock, number 2, letter U. All right, let's go ahead and get into our conversation about Christianity and politics.
I don't know what I think about it, but your Bush League days off through. Will you give me a job? I doubt it. Here's a bird in the hand for you. Next time you start a storm, you better get you a mesquite canteen and uniform. 'Cause we feel like living, so you got to go. Your points of light are almost gone, so here's our yellow ribbon burning song. La 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 la.
I don't know how you feel about politics. I know you started out as pretty conservative or whatever, and I did too a long time ago, but I've been trying to stay above the fray, try to not take a huge partisan stand on stuff, because like towing the party line is not really in line with how I see the world. Any party is going to try to grab onto power structures, and I think as soon as you do that, you kind of lose the plot. I feel like we've been sort of dancing around it, but there's some seriously crazy shit going on, and I feel like I gotta address it. I don't know how to address it. I'm feeling very uncomfortable about it. I don't know.
I've been feeling the same way, because I'm it doesn't feel like there's any real criticism from within the evangelical circles. You have these deconstructionist guys that they're doing it, but they've deconstructed, so they're not really within the evangelical framework anymore. But there are people like David French who are very vocal about it.
Right.
Some of these Republicans that have spoken out against the craziness, but they're not really. I think David French is the one that does the most from within.
Well, this guy that I was listening to today, there's a podcast that Doug showed me a long time ago. It's called The Bible for Normal People. They've also got an offshoot called Faith for Normal People.
Yeah, he showed me that. Those guys are great.
They're good, but I also feel like they were. My criticism with them was they were a little glib sometimes. I guess I'm trying to find who are the true believers that are unabashed Christians who also call out bullshit.
Yeah,
I feel like that Venn diagram is getting very narrow.
For me, with I don't know if it's Bible for Normal People or there's another one, Straight White American Jesus.
Yeah.
I sent that
But
to
that's
you
become
today.
like completely political. It's just like that's just all politics. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
that's fine. I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable with it and talking about it. I can't.
It bothers me when they've exchanged one dogma
Right.
for another.
That's what
So when
seems to
you
happen.
start talking about you're using the language of the left
Right.
as a way to it just doesn't make sense. People don't talk
Latinx.
that way. Yeah, people just don't talk that way. I mean,
Right.
I agree with Carvo. Yeah, he said. I mean, people don't just talk like normal people.
Right. It's like progressive white people that are like trying to like tiptoe around everything.
Yeah, and they have a specific language.
Try not to offend people. So they had a guest today called Lee. His name's Lee Camp. He's from Nashville. He's a professor. He wrote a book called Scandalous Witness. It's like how to be a Christian in the modern age. And one thing he said, which really stood out to me, is like, you know, he's like, I voted for Republicans, I voted for Democrats. He's like, your stance as a Christian in the world, it has nothing to do with your country or your national
That's right.
identity. And so like you should like vote ad hoc, like you should vote for like things you care about. It has no like relation to party loyalty or anything like that. And he's just like, and he said, you know, no matter how you vote, it's always gonna be corrupted because America is an imperialist system. And so no matter how you vote, you're voting for an imperialist expansionist system, which is like counter to Christian values. So you can't have a Christian nation. Like the idea of a Christian nation is like Christ's values are antithetical to the values of a nation state.
Yeah. I've told some family members that that believe this is a Christian nation. I'm like, it's a Christian nation in the sense that there are Christians in this nation, but the idea that a nation can be saved
right
in the same way that people can, or that it is America is exceptional, that it was called by God, like Israel is. Like,
or just the values of Jesus Christ has any relation to, because like a nation, if you're a nation, like your job is to like protect your borders, your job is to like protect your national interests and to expand your national interests, especially if you're an expansionist like capitalist state like America. And that's fine. I don't know if there's anything like intrinsically wrong with that, but that's not Christian. The values of Jesus Christ are like antithetical to all that stuff.
There's two characters in the Gospels. I mean, obviously Jesus, but then there's another character that is brought before Pontius Pilate in juxtaposition to Jesus, and that's Barabbas.
Right.
Barabbas is where the fundamentalists are right now, or the evangelicals are right now. Like if you brought Donald Trump and someone that resembled Jesus and his principles and you brought both of them to the crowd and said, which one of these guys do you want me to free? We know 100% that 90% of the evangelicals right now would choose Donald Trump. And they would say, no, we wouldn't do that. But it's just, man, I've been thinking a lot about this. I just feel like these are people that I feel like they're authentic in their faith. They're just misguided and easily deceived, which is very disappointing to me.
Yeah.
When you see these people just making excuse after excuse for a guy that is just, and he's just not a good person. Forget about the fact that he's not a Christian. He's just not a good person. So, you know, I don't know anything about King Cyrus, but I know King Cyrus ruled Persia for 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure he was an effective leader. That's not what Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is a fake.
Right.
Like everything about him is fake. These are people that are attracted to the image of leadership without substance, right? So you have the guy down in Houston, Olstein, you have Kenneth Copeland, you have the Baptist guy in Dallas. There's no real substance to I don't question their Christianity at all. I just don't think there's a lot of substance to it.
But what do you mean? What do you mean when you say you don't question the Christianity? Because I mean, to me, like Christianity has been co-opted by something that I don't understand. Like what they're saying is Christianity. I don't understand. Like I'm falling into like a pit of despair. Like I just like it's like very. I'm feeling like I'm trying to hang on to be a Christian, but my idea of what being a Christian is and the things I'm inspired by, the gospel, I don't see anywhere in the Christian evangelical landscape like at all. Like I'm trying to find. They've co-opted these words and like perverted it into like some sort of other thing that I don't recognize. And maybe it's always been there, but like it's become so pronounced now. Like what we were arguing about last time we talked was just like you're saying like Christianity, you know, there's going to be like the falling away of like these like fundamentalists is going to fall away or whatever. I'm thinking that Christianity is going to disappear because like the only people that are claiming Jesus or claiming Christianity are these fucking assholes. And like once they disappear, then Christianity, I don't see anybody like standing up for what I think Christianity is like anywhere other than like a couple of weirdos that aren't really in the discourse.
No, they're not. And I was thinking that today when we were talking to Doug Van Pelt, and he was talking about how his dad went to a Billy Graham crusade, and that's where he got saved. And I'm like, and then I look at these political rallies that Sean Freud and fucking Lance Wallnau, these are false prophets, false teachers.
Right.
This is where you test the spirit, right? And then you can go to Galatians 5 and you can run it through the whole schematic of what's of the flesh and what's of the spirit. They are not operating in the spirit. These are angry guys that just want to stick it to, you know, they want to own the libs, right? And they're using their Christian faith to do that.
Right.
And it's a bad witness, right? And then you compare that
but who's counteracting that other than like Christian progressives or whatever, you know? I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm stuck in a weird world where like I hung out with like left-wing Christians in Chicago where things got politicized. I mean, like I feel like everything got politicized on that side, where it's just like Jesus was just like a social justice worker or like Che Guevara or like a revolutionary. And like that's also not true. It also has its own problems. Like I feel like everyone's just trying to co-opt Jesus into their political movement. And like that's where I'm navigating.
Well, and there's different, even within that larger group, there's subgroups that have different views on Christianity, right? So you have post-liberal Catholics that are rallying with charismatic Pentecostals in Pennsylvania last week. You know, that's a weird combination because
are those your people?
Yeah, that's like that's a weird, I know firsthand that's a weird combo. You know, it's like, but there's also the idea that, and Augustine talks about this on Christianity, that people approach Christianity in different ways, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Sure.
But so you could have progressive Christians that are adopting the language of the far left,
Marxism,
Christian Marxism, or gender ideology, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. They're still Christians. They're just part of their Christian experience is within our political system, we would say it's left, right? But, you know, and the same with those on the right. The problem, like you're saying, is what comes first? Is it their Christianity? Is it the idea that they're following Christ, or are they following a temporal political ideology?
Well, I think that's what this guy Lee Camp was saying on the podcast I listened to. So Doug, hey Doug, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm Doug.
Today? Hi, I'm Doug.
What's up?
We'll retroactively patch that into whatever intro I put in there. So I just wanted to talk tonight because I think I went down a trajectory over the last 24 hours where I'm like, I don't know. And then like I listened to this episode of Faith for Normal People, which is an offshoot of Bible for Normal People today, which they put in an episode with this guy Lee Camp, who's a Nashville professor, and he wrote a book called Scandalous Witness, which is like how to engage culture or politics as a Christian. and he said a lot of things that were really stuck in my brain that I wanted to discuss with you guys. He's just
For
like,
example,
so a quote that he said, no matter how you vote, I mean, you can vote however you want, but like you're a part of an imperialist system in America. And so like as an American, you're free to vote, whatever, but like you're never pure. Like you're voting for like probably the most imperialist nation in the world.
I mean,
history.
that we're sending weapons to Israel.
So Kamala, Trump, whatever, like it's not that it doesn't matter, but like it's like you're not, just because you're going to vote Democrat doesn't mean you're pure.
Right.
Man, I would push back on the most imperialistic nation.
Right now?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I mean, how are you defining imperialistic? I mean, sending weapons to Israel, an ally?
But it's more than that. I mean, like the World Bank, the IMF, like our fingers, like we are responsible for Mexico's poverty. Like the U.S., I would argue, is almost single-handedly responsible for Mexico's poverty because of the IMF and because of the World Bank. I mean, we took advantage of their oil crisis in the 70s and took all their shit away from them. I mean, so that's imperialistic. I mean,
So
okay, so I'm not saying we're like the evilest country in the world. That's not the point. The point is like we are living in a nation state that has national interests for good or bad. His whole point was like, you're a Christian, you have Christian values, you're following Jesus Christ. You cannot have pure Christian values and also pretend that your nation is Christian. Because nation states do not, nation state by definition cannot have Christian values because Jesus Christ is incompatible. The things that Jesus Christ is talking about and where you're supposed to live as a Christian as an individual is incompatible with like the goals of any nation state.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he's not saying that America's bad or whatever, but just like America has interests. Every nation has its interests in a political entity's interest is to like expand or like protect their territory or whatever and like make life better for their people. It's not all bad. It's fine. It's real politic, whatever. But it's just like, that's not Christian. If you talk about Christian means something. Like Jesus Christ and what he said meant something. And that's not compatible with our current like way that nations exert political power. You know what I mean? It's all what we've been talking about, power structures and stuff. So that kind of resonated with me based on what we've been talking about. Like, and he kind of concludes it's like, if you're using the Bible or Christianity to manipulate people, to consolidate power, no matter what side you're on, that's not Christian.
That's why the New Apostolic Reformation referred to the Old Testament, because in the Old Testament you had nation Christian states, you know, you had Israel, you had Babylon, that were all fighting each other and in the name of God, right? So God is on our side.
Yeah.
So you don't get that framework in the New Testament, really. I mean, there's almost an indifference in the gospel to the Roman Empire. There's hardly any references to the political system of that time.
I think there's this tacit belief, for lack of a better word, that the end times are the doing of God's will.
Premillennialism is all about the world has to fall apart. It is falling apart. Just like God has to come in and like solve everything, like swoop in and save us save the remnant at the end. There's nothing we can do about it. We're just going to let the world fall apart and not like invest in anything. And I think there's like a break. There's like a definite like social shift sometime in the late 20th century where that happened.
It's funny. I just put this together and I don't even know if it's so. Dispensationalism is a response to modernism and fundamentalism is a response to modernism.
Right.
What we see now is in Christianity or in the American evangelical church is a response to postmodernism, right? Where they adapt.
They're the most postmodern.
Yeah, like, where there is
post reality, post like super relativistic. Yeah,
it's like this. Like I said earlier, it's like this gamification of theology. Where
when you say gamification for the listeners, what do you mean by that?
Well, just when you look at game theory and how it was applied to whoever started that, and this isn't me. I've heard people reference game theory in as far as QAnon, and it became a game for the followers. They have to do their own research, right? There's this whole idea that you have to go, like they had set up times where you have to listen to a certain person and they're going to reveal another Q drop, right? That to me, that's the same as prophecy within the charismatic movement. Like I'm a prophet. Like this guy, Lance Wallnau, is a self-proclaimed prophet, false prophet. He's the one that came up with the King Cyrus analogy for Trump, which is bullshit, right?
Well, and was King Cyrus a good king?
Yeah, he was for 40 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he's a good king, but he gave the Israelites, he let them go back to Jerusalem and worship in their temple.
But he was a pagan. Right?
Yeah.
So Trump is a pagan, but he is going
he's protecting
to
the Christians.
Yeah, and he's going to allow us
This is a
to
bullshit
take
theory.
it. Totally.
Here's where I don't understand it. You pray, you feel God speaking to you. I pray, I feel God speaking to me. Why is God sending two different messages?
He's not. And it's the problem. That's the problem with it. That's where it becomes very postmodern. It's like that's my truth.
Right.
But my truth, so then they mix it with the rationality and the certainty of modernism, right? And say, well, no, my truth is the truth, right? And then they'll throw out
They'll try to have it both ways.
Yeah, but it's really whatever. It's kind of these ad hoc prophecies where they're just making it up to support their political view. That's what I'm saying. Like, so
you can't be a prophet unless you're killed.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I mean, if they were following the Old Testament and and the Jewish law, then these guys would be stoned because Lance Wallnau prophesied that, or one of these guys prophesied that Trump would be reelected in 2020, right? Well, that's a false prophecy because he wasn't.
Well, because it was stolen.
But yeah, so now they saved face. Right. That's what I'm saying. So now they save face by changing facts,
reality,
and changing reality, which is very, I don't know if you want to call it postmodern, but it's kind of whatever I'm feeling at the moment is the truth, my truth.
Well, it's funny because that's what I was like when I was growing up. That's like people would rail against relativism, and like postmodernism was like the great evil, right? Like,
yeah, I wrote papers in college.
Yeah.
Arguing against postmodernism and subjectivism.
Now they've embraced it, like
moral relativism.
Right.
Well, they don't call it that though. They call it the truth.
Right.
Well,
my parents christened me when I was born. Right. Gave me this whole like George Douglas, whatever, and I had this thing hanging on my wall, and it said, "George Douglas, messenger of God."
Oh wow, that's a lot to live up to.
Well, it's true.
What's the message right now?
Hold on. You need to do a Doug drop.
Yeah.
You need to do a Doug drop like in a week and to get some followers.
My thing is like I think about that.
I make some money, dude. If these all
Maybe we'll get some actual listeners.
Yeah, but that is the thing that is taught to every kid that I knew in the Baptist church is like, you're God's messenger, be true. And then you have these people, you just have people believing some pretty like ridiculous things based on their own experiences and then believing that like, but no, I'm God's messenger. Like, I really think this. Therefore I'm convicted.
But I feel like there are certain groups that are susceptible to deception, and there's a clear instruction by Paul in the New Testament on make sure you're aware, you're aware of this, that there are people that are going to deceive you.
Right.
And when you have people arming themselves they just were devastated by a hurricane, and now they're arming themselves against the people that are there to fucking help them.
Right.
Because some crackpot moron said that FEMA is going to take their houses and they're going to take their property. We're in a weird time, which is why I say it's very postmodern. It's very,
It is a weird time.
they get to, then that's why I say there's this gamification of the political and theological system right now, where I'm going to play this game. People are going to tell me, I'm in my little silo on Twitter or wherever. These guys are going to tell me the truth because everyone else isn't, right? Mainstream media is not telling me the truth. And then the catch-all is like, don't go to college. Don't go to college because they're not going to tell you the truth.
Right.
Right. So it's anti-intellectual. It's
But
I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah, but I will. Yeah. And,
Satanic.
and I'm going to tell you that. But then where does it get you? Like, they're telling them that the government has a weather machine that they were able to create this fucking hurricane. These are,
my friend.
it's insanity. This is insane.
Is also like, that George Bush was like, we will be able to control the weather, and then he had to walk it back.
Yeah, no, look, right. Cloud seeding has been around for 100 years. They've been trying to, they can manipulate. They can't create fucking hurricanes. Okay, those are the type of energy that it takes to create a hurricane.
Tony,
is not.
Do you believe in chemtrails?
Come on, man. I'm
I thought it was trials.
Chemtrails.
Now it makes sense.
We are in a very bizarre time in history.
So weird.
And then it's affecting Christianity. I'm like looking at these people.
Man,
I'm
it's
like,
killing it. Man,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm like, who are they? They're going out to fucking do rallies for Donald Trump, and that's why I was earlier before you got on. I was talking about the Billy Graham crusade, where they were there to bring people into Christianity, right?
Not to
and whether you
party.
agree with the Baptist theology or not, that was their main mission. It was to reach people, and Billy Graham was, he was apolitical. I remember, like, why is he at Clinton's inauguration or what? Because
you're all pissed about it.
Yeah, because he wasn't political. He wasn't. He's not like his son is
Franklin.
It's the bastardization of. He's a horrible person. Yeah. He's a dogmatic. He's the kind of person. Again, if Pontius Pilate was presenting Jesus and Donald Trump right now, which one do you want to free?
Right.
Franklin Graham is Donald Trump all day long, right? Because Jesus is talking about saving people and it's not. That's where we are in American Christianity right now.
People want power.
It's absurd, and also the self-centered focus of American Christians. There are Christians in China that if they have to stay in their house,
right,
and if they leave and if they preach the gospel or if they are proselytizing other Chinese citizens, they will be arrested and put in jail. That's real persecution.
Right.
Over here, if somebody disagrees with you, it's like these are the weakest fucking Christians.
You made me bake a cake for a gay couple.
Fuck you.
Right.
It's like, what are you talking about? You're being persecuted.
Right.
You're not being persecuted. You're being persecuted because you think your Christian nation is not a Christian nation.
You're persecuting.
Or something. There's like a couple of, there's like 30,000 Islamic people in Michigan and they want to enact Sharia law. That was a big thing during Bush. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Right.
But then
there's
going to
be Sharia law
throwing up the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. All over the damn place. And it's like, well, hey, fine. You know what? throw up the 10 Commandments. Throw up everybody else's commandments too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Wow. Like in Little Rock, where they're putting up the 10 Commandments and then the Satanist church puts up Baphomet. And then they take down the 10 Commandments and the Satanic church takes down Baphomet. And then they put it back up, and they put it up.
It's like you have one, you gotta have the other.
It's
I mean,
just,
I gotta tell you, the Satanists are way funnier.
I know.
They're like-
It's hilarious.
They have a better grasp on reality.
then the Satanists are more in line with the fucking founders of this country. It's
Right.
like there's the establishment clause in the Constitution for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, that establishment clause basically says we are not a Christian nation. We are
Right.
a religious nation, and there is the freedom of religion, and
Right.
anyone can practice their religion anywhere
Whatever religion they want.
to.
They
Yeah,
were
whatever
all
religion.
Masons, dude. They were all Masons. And in the Masonic temple, you talk about God. You don't talk about Christ or Krishna or what. And like, it's a deity, right? But if you also, I don't know the last time you've been to the Capitol, but like, who's in the God position in the Capitol building?
George Washington.
It's George Washington.
Yeah.
That is, as a Christian, I'm like, well, that's definitely not Christian.
But that's okay with me.
Yeah,
It's okay with me.
That's
as a
our
metaphor.
founding national myth, but it's like it's a political national nation
Right.
state.
we are a secular nation.
And I love America. I love what America stands for, but I love Christianity for a different reason.
That's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's what they said,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Enjoy your faith, because we're
Right.
not going to have the Church of England over here,
Right.
where they're telling you and you're paying taxes and tithes to the Church of England,
Yeah.
and
Right.
they're dictating what you can believe as a Christian.
Right.
No, that's not. And,
Yeah.
and so when you have a Sean Feucht, whatever the fuck his name is, or Lance Wallnau talking about this is a Christian nation, and my view of Christianity now I get to impose that on all Americans. Fuck
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's anti-American.
Anti-American.
That is fucking anti-American. The founders knew that religion is a hierarchical system.
Right.
That's why they put the establishment clause in there, because they knew that they couldn't compete. A secular government couldn't compete with a religion, because they just dealt with it in England.
Yeah. They spent like
Right?
200
The
years like
influence
fighting
of
each other.
the influence of Shoshana's family is here because they were Quakers.
Mhm.
And they had to leave England to come to the United States. It
Right.
wasn't the States at that time, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. I mean, they
Yeah.
came to the New World because they weren't persecuted over here.
Right.
So it's so frustrating to hear these Christian nationalists talk as if it's Christian nationalism, but it's not nationalism based on American values. It's just
No, it's quasi fascism.
They want a nation state based around their Christianity, which is
Right.
fucking crazy, by the way.
Right.
Right? I
And
grew up
why-
in it.
Yeah.
The prophecies and the dispensationalist bullshit. It's garbage. It's garbage. Borderline heresy, in my opinion.
Here's Tony, St. Paul of the God Gave Rock and Roll for You podcast.
Like, look at fucking Paul. Galatians starts off, he's fucking cursing the Judaizers because they're saying you got to be circumcised. And you go to chapter 5 of Galatians, and he's talking about, why don't you just take circumcision all the way and cut your fucking dick off? That's basically what Paul's
Is that what he
telling the
says?
Judaizers. Yes. It's very clear in any translation. That's exactly what he's
Is
saying.
it the same passage where they're talking about the penis being a fountain, or is that a different
That's Proverbs.
Proverbs?
I'm just saying, Paul was pissed when because they were adding other shit. So when someone says, if you're a Christian, to be a Christian, you have to vote Republican.
Right.
No.
That's bullshit. You're adding
Yeah.
to the gospel. You're adding to what it means to be a Christian. And then Paul goes on to say what it really means to be a Christian. And then he references Jesus, right?
Okay.
Love your neighbor, love your God, with all your heart.
Have you guys ever hung out with like left-wing Christians? I think that's like what I keep. That's why I don't like to talk about politics on the podcast, because it's like I feel like, and I think I still have a disagreement with Tony, where like Tony, you're saying that like, yeah, all the fundamentalism is going to fall away. That might happen, but I think Christianity is going to die, and like I don't see the people that are kind of like reclaiming Christianity that's not tied to some sort of political movement. I think all these social justice people in Chicago, we were like this group called Justice Watch. We were like fighting for justice, whatever. To me, there's something about the gospel that's apolitical. It's political, but it's apolitical. You know, I don't know how to say this. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm trying to get at? Like, it's like you can't harness it for political power easily. And like, that's by design. Like, I think Christ was like, every time they tried to like corner him, like the Jews would do that.
So
But it's just like, it's like, are you for us or are you for the Romans? So they try to like corner him into like a political statement. And he'd always like have,
and he's like, I'm more of a Hellenist.
yeah. He's like,
when Peter,
let me reframe this conversation.
when they capture Jesus and Peter takes his sword out and chops the ear off of the guard. Right. Jesus is like, what the fuck are you doing? Right. That's not what we're here. We're not here to do that. We're not here to start a revolution. That's Barabbas. Right.
He healed the centurion's daughter. Like there's stuff that would have outraged people that were just like anti-Roman, like, and he did that on purpose.
And there is no love.
And he made a cake for that gay couple.
Right.
Where
at
is
the well, I think.
If you listen to the religious right,
is that parable about the gay at the well?
If you listen to these guys, they're just hateful people.
Yeah.
These are people that are just filled with hate. They're not filled with love. They want to own the libs. They want to operate in the temporal political system, and they want to drag fucking Christianity into it. That's what they're doing. And then you got this fucking hippie, Sean Feucht, who just pisses me off because he wants to come across like he's part of the Jesus Revolution, Southern California. I'm going to worship God and on stage, and like we're going to play worship songs. But he's a fucking prick.
Yeah.
Right? He has no idea that he doesn't represent the love of God. Like, I don't hear the love of God in anything that he says. Right? So what is he talking about? Like, how is he? It boggles my mind in that if you're a Christian and you truly believe in the gospel story, then you're going to go and spread that story apart from any political, like, it's not about politics. It's not about nationalism. It's not about a country.
So what is the Christian role in politics?
And what is the gospel?
Well,
I think it's like you said.
If you're an American and you have the rights to vote and you have a right to affect the way this country is going or whatever the country you live in as in a democracy, and you're a Christian, what is your role in like shaping the narrative of that country or the nation state?
There's not a Christian role in that. Right. It's just if you're a Christian and you have ideas and you have viewpoints and your viewpoints align with a candidate, then yeah, vote for them. But if your moral and ethical viewpoints align with a candidate that is just going to just devastate your life with tariffs and, bringing the military in to fucking kill,
round everybody, all those
round 20 million people up. Yeah. That's going to affect your life also, right? So, you have to weigh these issues as a Christian, but, I don't think you also have to look at the character of the person that you're voting for. And I don't think any of these Christians are doing that because they've given themselves a permission structure using some bullshit King Cyrus from the Old Testament to say, well, King Cyrus was a pagan. So we don't, he was not of God, of the the God of Israel.
But Isaiah,
God used him. Yeah, right. So God is going to use Donald Trump to empower us so that we can have a Christian nation again, which never existed. It's never been a Christian nation.
But what is their goal? I don't understand what a Christian nation is. Like, do you understand what they're trying to do? Like, what does that even look like? Is it the Christian Taliban?
No, I don't know.
I don't know what that looks like.
I've asked people that have said this.
Like you talk to people on that side of the camp.
Yeah, and they just want Christian morality, Christian ethics. But
I think they're scared of losing their culture.
Yeah, they are. Doug hit it on the head. This is all fear.
They're afraid of losing their culture. It is all
Yes.
fear-based.
Yes.
They're afraid of like someone's ideology is going to like surpass mine, and
We were in power.
I
We
won't
might not be
matter
in power anymore.
Yeah.
or like I didn't have to fear anything, and now I'm going to have to fear something.
I think to your point, Matt, I think Christianity is going to take on, Christianity does adapt, right?
Mhm.
And it wouldn't exist today if it didn't, right?
It adapted to Paul.
Yeah, and it adapted to the Catholic hierarchy, and you had the Reformation, then you had, many splits within those different
Right.
outshoots of the Reformation. But so you have all of these, and that's where I was going back to Augustine. That's what he was saying. Like, this is good for the church because it spreads the gospel and the message of Christ, right, in different ways. So it only multiplies. But and so now going back to the juxtaposition between Franklin Graham and Billy Graham, there is no multiplication. So Christianity, that's why I say fundamentalism is going to die. Christianity is not. And whether it's in a minority status, which it always is better.
Probably thrives when it's better when it is.
Thrives in a minority status. I don't know. I think it's just going to take on a new shape. It's not going to be, I don't think it's going to adapt and take on far left or progressive Marxist ideology and mix it in with Christianity. That's not going to move people to Christianity either.
That's also, I don't know, maybe
It's
I'm
another
reading
political
too much
system.
into what you're saying, but when we talk about like God's will and the inerrancy of whatever, I'm like, if someone is moved to be a communist because of their Christianity or whatever, that's going to serve people in a way
Sure.
that person needs to serve them.
Yeah, and I have friends like that who are doing great.
Yeah.
work for
Yeah,
people.
that's fine.
If
Social justice and
Mhm.
like
God's moving you to do something else, then great. God is not moving you to vote for a liar. God is not,
Yeah,
and I
that's
don't mean
right,
vote
yeah.
for him. I mean to believe him or trust in him. And so that's what I was kind of saying to Doug Van Pelt is like, don't vote for Kamala if you think she's doing that, but you can't vote for Trump. You just
Mhm.
can't. You can't say the things, you can't believe the things that you say you believe, and then say, well, this is the man that God has chosen. I don't think God has chosen Kamala. Frankly, to your point, Matt, I don't think that God has chosen America.
Right.
No, he hasn't.
No,
He
we're not
hasn't. That's
special.
bullshit.
Well, my point is like vote for whoever you want to. Like, I don't care. I actually don't care if people vote for Trump for whatever like personal reason they want to, but like don't fucking say he's speaking for God.
That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm gonna go next week and vote for Kamala Harris, but there's no part of me that thinks that she's voting like she's the vote for God. You know?
No.
Dude, I'm going to be in line on Monday morning.
Yeah, 7
early
a.m.
voting.
Yeah,
And and hopefully, and I am going to vote for Kamala Harris.
all right.
And Tim Walz.
Yeah,
And and when I leave the fucking polls, I will be just as much of a Christian
right.
as I was before I cast that vote.
Are you sure about that, Tony?
I've had people like that was saying you're not a Christian if you vote for a Democrat because they're demonic.
Swirling Eddies have a song via
Ooh, Christian rock.
Strange Days of Our Lives. When's the last time you listened to that song?
I know. I can hear it. I can hear it in my head right now.
We might love someone who's an enemy. We might break the laws of entropy. Actually, let's play it. Can you play it on Spotify or something? Come on, play this song. It's beautiful, and it is not Trump. Talk later.
I think can you put some of this Sean Feucht in this podcast if we're gonna put this out, because that's Christian praise and worship music.
And I feel like tonight God is calling us as the people. This is not about an album release or a thing or a this or that. This is a night where God's saying every single person activated for the kingdom of God. Every single person walking down Sunset Boulevard with the Bible, baby. The devil doesn't know what's coming. We're taking it back. We're taking it all back. We're taking it all back.
We're taking it back. We're taking back the streets of this city. We're taking back the universities. We're taking back the high schools. We're taking back the neighborhoods. They all belong to Jesus, and he's just waiting for you.
They used to say, shut up and sing and don't tell me about your politics.
Right.
Right. I remember Laura Ingraham, the horrible person on Fox News. Like she used to say that. I think she wrote a book.
Well, the Dixie Chicks got like canceled for like talking about Bush.
Yeah, and that's what she said. And now you got this fucking hippie bullshit artist from California. Like, and also,
Can't dress right,
how much is he
motherfucker.
making? How much? Have you watched these rallies on? If you look at Newsmax, the advertisements next to it, it's so crazy. They know these guys are suckers. They're going to buy Trump shoes. They're going to buy Trump medallions. They're going to buy American jackets from Kenneth Copeland for $300. You know, these are shysters, man. These are
Totally.
like con men.
Yeah.
That have just found a group of people that are authentic. To me, I feel like a lot of these people, and I grew up with them, they're authentic people. These people truly believe.
Do they? Are
that,
they're not just total grifters?
No, they believe it. They're true believers. You know, I would never question whether or not my parents are true believers, ever. Like, they believe that God is talking through Kenneth Copeland, and they use this whole thing. There's a psalm that says, don't touch the anointed or whatever. And it's like, it's a way for them to protect themselves. So I'm going to fucking con you out of a shitload of money based on tithe and offering, and I'm going to buy a shitload of jets. But if you talk shit about me, you are touching the God's anointed. And that's against scripture, right? Your life will be cursed. So it's this trap of like, they protect themselves through scripture.
Well, yeah. And
I mean, these are the
me-
prosperity guys, right?
And that goes into like that other thing you sent, which was like the documentary about the women who were like being abused in the church. Or just
Yeah,
like,
that's horrible. Yeah.
these guys have
And
like
they want to
absolute
talk about
power.
transgender people,
Right.
like messing up kids. And how many of these fucking pastors? I mean,
Like,
there's a
yeah,
shitload.
yeah,
There
yeah,
is a
yeah.
shitload, like hundreds. It's not an isolated incident with
No.
Gateway guy, right? This is a widespread issue with youth pastors, with the main pastors. Like, there's a lot.
Do you have that song queued up, Matt?
This is a great song. It's
It
very
is.
short too.
It's Jesus.
It is Jesus. And it's something you never hear in the political discourse.
We might love someone who's an enemy. We might break the laws of entropy. And we might learn respect. You might even listen to me in the strange days of our lives. We might breathe clean air, swim a cobalt sea. We might stop a war, act with gallantry. And we might read a book, improve our memory in the strange days of our lives. And when we took the torch into the night, we vowed to search the highways for an honest man. But when we looked into each other's eyes, we knew it would be best to make some other plan, where we might keep the faith, seek truth, speak honestly. We might even pull the plugs on our TVs. We might help the and learn geography in the strange days of our lives. In the strange days of our lives.
Yeah,
So
man,
good.
it's such
That's
a great
great.
song.
Yeah.
Man, that to me says so much about what's wrong with a lot of Christians, the Christians who they kind of the ones we're talking about, they don't want to help. They don't want to talk. They don't want to look into each other's eyes. They don't
No.
like
Yeah. And it's
but that's what Christ is asking us to do. You know?
he's asking us to be uncomfortable
Right.
because we're not comfortable with
Right.
those kind of actions toward others, right? Beyond just loving your neighbor and loving God, there's also feeding the poor and taking care of the elderly. That is in every letter from Paul.
In
That's one of-
every
that's-
prophet.
Yeah, it's because there's a lack of servitude toward others.
Right.
That is essential. It's a foundational element to our faith.
Well, thanks everybody for letting us rant a little bit about that. We promise we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming soon, talking about Christian music and Christian culture. We've got some great guests coming up in the near future. So again, thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more. We'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.